deeply.
Good morning. I'm sitting
Good
here
morning.
dancing to the tunes and laughing at myself
Yeah.
because I was in the middle of telling Glenn a story just before we went on air, and I took like a longer story and I finished it in 5 seconds. And blah, 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 blah. Okay, we're going live. And so I sat here and laughed at myself afterwards because I thought it was really freaking hilarious. But hello, good morning, and welcome to the PACE News Report. It is, oh gosh, it's December 22nd, 2022. We are in the end of it now. And we are live here from the Legacy420.com news desk. And we bring you our live global, not reefer reporters, I was about to say it, our live global PACE News broadcast here on the PACE Radio Network. Good morning, Glenn.
Good morning. I think we're soon to go really global. We're going to go to
Yes.
Costa Rica.
We are. We're gonna be global. Glenn is moving to Costa Rica for the winter. Terrible. I mean, like, yeah, all of these moving things that he has to go through. I feel so sorry for him. Oh, Glenn, it must be terrible having to, move down. And,
I've heard that a lot.
And then having to move back up in the summer. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's fantastic. I'm so excited for you.
I'm excited for myself. It's been a lifelong kind of dream,
No, it's absolutely thrilling. Let me apologize ahead of time, folks. We do have a little bbit of lag going on. So I apologize if Glenn and I speak over each other and for the moments of silence while we wait for each other to finish talking, just to make sure. But we just have a little bit of lag going on. So we'll work with it, and hopefully you will be able to put up with it as well. Right?
Yeah.
Right. See, lag. I don't know
I'm
where
in
it's
an
coming from, but
Airbnb,
yes.
So the internet's a little bit, iffy.
Yeah, well, we'll make it through, though. It'll all happen. We're going to head over to our first story coming to you this morning from StratCan. Annual survey shows cannabis legalization still progressing safely and effectively? Question mark. Question marks for me.
Health Canada's 6th annual Canadian Cannabis Survey once again shows that concerns that legalization could cause young people and Canadians in general to increase cannabis use were unfounded. The survey was launched prior to legalization to help establish a baseline understanding of cannabis use and perceptions of cannabis across the country.
Questions look at factors such as how much cannabis people consume and for what reason, how often and what form they consume, and issues of public safety such as perceived risks of use and impaired driving. The 2022 Canadian Cannabis Survey, the CCS, also added several new questions looking for issues of accidental consumption, exposure to advertisements and promotions, and how COVID-19 impacted use patterns.
And survey responses were anonymous. Results help the government evaluate the impact of legalization on Canadians, and will also help inform the current legislative review of the Cannabis Act, which is looking at a similar societal impacts brought about by legalization. The newest findings show that the past 12 months, cannabis use among youth 16 to 19 has returned to pre-legalization levels in 21 and 2022, after increasing slightly between 2018 and 2020.
Furthermore, those reporting daily or almost daily cannabis use, something that government notes is an indicator of problematic or high-risk cannabis use behavior, have been stable since 2018, including among youth aged 16 to 19. Although still by far the most common mode of consuming cannabis, people reported smoking cannabis has also declined as more report using vape pens. A trend with its own possible health concerns, as well as eating cannabis food products or oils.
The proportion of Canadian cannabis consumers sourcing from the legal market continues to increase as well. A majority of consumers, which is 61%, said they had made a purchase from a legal store, up from 53% in 2021. Only 2% reported getting their cannabis from an illicit website, and only 1% reported purchasing from an illicit storefront, both unchanged from 2021. Another 1% said they purchased from an illicit dealer, down from 2% in 2021.
I think those. Well, I don't know. I think there's a few reasons for that. I think some people aren't telling the truth because they want the cops to stop looking for the illicit dealers and be able to get what they want when they want it. I also think it has to do
Yes.
with a lot of the legacy growers that we saw over the years have moved to the legal market. So they're not there to
Yes.
purchase. They're still being purchased from, but they're now legal.
And what they're calling illicit is kind of weird to me. Some, this is not a dealer from down the street. Some of these are storefronts and online businesses.
Yeah, illicit is just not government supported. That's really what it. I mean, I wish that they would put it that way. Non-government businesses, like and fine. I use the word legacy or gray market sometimes, but yeah, I mean, a lot of the legacy growers. Like, I mean, I when I was in Ontario, I mean, like when I went to the legal stores there, I went to get the legal product that used to be legacy product. I mean, that's what I went and bought when I was in Ontario, and. And so many of them have moved that way, and it's really great cannabis too. I really enjoy the cannabis that, the stuff that's now legal that used to be legacy. Freaking phenomenal. And I'm really happy for these people that they've moved into the legal world and no longer have to worry about that knock on their door. It's phenomenal. I'm excited for them.
True.
Those who reported driving within up to 2 hours after using cannabis increased slightly compared to last year, 23 versus 21 of those individuals. 37 reported having done so within the past 30 days, 28% within the last 12 months, and 35% reported having done so more than 12 months ago, all unchanged from 2021. Driving after smoking or vaping cannabis was more common among males, individuals aged 20 to 24, and individuals aged 25 years and older. So everybody.
When it comes to knowledge or beliefs regarding any associated harms with cannabis use and awareness of various government measures to communicate those harms, these numbers remained relatively unchanged from the previous year's study results or survey results. Most Canadians, 72%, said they had enough trustworthy information about the potential harms of cannabis use, about the same as the previous year.
Of the Canadians who consume cannabis, 62 reported having seen warning labels on legal products as the same as in the previous year. Over half of these said that the information had increased their knowledge of the harms related to cannabis use at least somewhat, which was also unchanged from 2021. The survey asked several new questions this time around, including looking at Canadians' exposure to and awareness of cannabis advertisements or promotions, and asking about any accidental exposure to cannabis in the household or for humans or pets.
In regards to cannabis advertising, more than half of Canadians, 51%, said they had not noticed any promotions for cannabis companies. Of those who said they did, most were seen outside of or inside cannabis stores, 24% and 13% respectively. About 10% to 14% said they saw such products advertised on billboards, social media, websites, or TV and or radio.
I've seen the billboards. Only 1% of Canadians reported accidental consumption occurring in their household. Of those, 48% said it involved a pet, 23% said it involved an adult, and 22% involved themselves, 13% involved a teenager. The report notes accidental consumption among children under 13 years of age was not reportable due to small counts that did not allow for an estimate. So that's good news. When it came to a secondhand exposure to cannabis smoke or vapor, most respondents said that this occurred in a public space. An increase from 33% to 44%, 33% in the previous year, 44% in the new year. 1/5 of Canadians reported exposure to secondhand cannabis smoke in their home, an increase from 17% in 2021.
Those who reported secondhand contact in a vehicle increased slightly from 5% in 2021 to 6% in 2022. Exposure at a workplace or school was reported by 7% overall, an increase from 5% in 2021. Exposure in all locations was more common among people who used cannabis in the 12 months than among people who did not. And I don't know what they're classing as exposure here. Like, is that you just walked somewhere and you smelt it?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I would have to assume. I mean, like they're asking Canadians, so like every person that answered this has a different view of that.
Right? Yeah.
So for me, exposure would be, okay, we're sitting in my studio right here, which is also my smoke room. I close the door and say my dad walks in here and gets a great big lungful of my secondhand smoke. That's exposure. If my door happens to be open and he's in the living room, I don't count that as the same exposure to the secondhand smoke. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just wondering because it just doesn't seem like this is scientific at all. It's just people's feelings, most of it.
No, it's not a scientific study. It's a survey. It's a government survey, not a scientific study. So completely different. The survey also asked Canadians about the perception of the social acceptability of alcohol, cannabis, and tobacco, including different modes of consumption. Unsurprisingly, alcohol was seen as the most socially acceptable, with 89% of respondents saying occasional use was socially acceptable, and 62% saying regular use was as well. It's absolutely gross.
The next most socially acceptable use was smoking or eating cannabis. The survey specifically asked about use for non-medical purposes for these questions, with 69% saying it was socially acceptable to do so occasionally, and just over 50% saying it was socially acceptable for regular use. 50's pretty good, I think, right now. I think it's increasing, but 50's pretty good. Vaping cannabis was seen as slightly less acceptable, with 64% saying it's acceptable occasionally and 48% saying it's acceptable regularly. I find that funny too. Vaping is less acceptable than smoking it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. I scrolled through this this story. You can actually go take a look at it and read it for yourselves. The rest of the story goes through this percentage for this much, these questions. It's really kind of interesting to watch it all and see how Canadians have changed or haven't changed their opinions, because that's what this is. It's an opinion survey. It's just asking us what we think. I really highly suggest going to read it, the thing in a whole, because it is really interesting to see how people have changed their perceptions of cannabis since it was legalized, right? Because it's changed. It's changed hard. Like, I mean, people like my dad, who never would have taken it prior to legalization, I mean, he uses it to fight his cancer now. I had the day of legalization, I had phone calls from almost all of my relatives in Newfoundland asking me how to do this and how to do that and what do we do, because it was legal. The day before, they would have preached against it. The day of, they were all for it. And I know that with their use, their perceptions have changed of it over the years. So that's where it's coming from, right? And I find it really interesting to see that everything is changing.
I think a big thing was once it was legalized, the world didn't blow up. It didn't collapse. Nobody ran into the streets killing people. We just went on, you know?
Yep. Heading over to StratCan again. Ingestible oils, most common cause of adverse reactions in 2 annual reports.
Health Canada has released their first 2 reviews on adverse reaction reports associated with cannabis. The most common reports of adverse reactions to cannabis involved ingestible cannabis oils or soft gels, and reports were most often from adult women. Younger adults were more likely to report negative effects from inhalable forms of cannabis, like dried flower or extract, while other older adults were more likely to report negative effects from cannabis oils or soft gels.
Covering October 17th, 2018 to December 31st, 2019, and January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020, there were a total of 378 adverse reactions associated with cannabis products reported to Health Canada's Canada Vigilance Database. While the first year of data collection for 18 to 19 showed 219 adverse reports, the following year saw only 159, so it's starting to go down.
Yep. And both years, most reports involved legal cannabis products, while others were associated with the illicit market or from an undetermined source or from mixing of other substances with cannabis. Of these 198, 77 in the first year and 121 in the second year were considered serious, with hospitalization as the most frequently reported reason for seriousness. The majority of cases in both years originated from consumers and were reported to Health Canada by cannabis license holders, federal producers. Only 24% of cases in the first year and 11% in the second year were reported by healthcare practitioners.
Okay, I need to go back here. 198 were considered serious, with hospitalization as the most frequently reported reason for seriousness. That makes no sense. I
No.
mean, talk about making no sense. That makes absolutely you got hospitalized, and that's why it was so serious, because you were in the hospital.
Well,
That makes
if
it
you
kind
go
of
to
funny.
the
I
hospital,
apologize.
if you go to the hospital, you're automatically considered serious, I guess.
Yeah, no, it makes no sense. I like my view of it. It got serious because you were in the hospital, and they have no freaking clue how to handle it.
Yep.
Good Lord. Health Canada defines an adverse reaction as a noxious and unintended response to a cannabis product, and defines a serious adverse reaction as a noxious and unintended response to cannabis product that requires inpatient hospitalization or prolongation of existing hospitalization, cause congenital malformation, results in persistent or significant disability or incapacity, is life-threatening, or results in death. Excuse me? Yeah, no.
Wow.
As the reporting of adverse reactions by consumers, healthcare practitioners, HCPs, medical cannabis clinics, and retailers is voluntarily. Health Canada notes that serious and non-serious cases from these sources are likely underreported. Well, oh my God, they don't need to report. I have greened out so many times. And you know what? I throw up and I sleep.
I have never had a problem with it ever. The only times I ever had a problem with cannabis is if I used it while I was drinking. And
I have a story for you? Oh my goodness, do
okay,
I
I'd
have a
like to hear
story
it.
for you? Oh my goodness. I need to go here. I need to go here. Okay, clicking buttons. So I went to, and I'm not going to tell you which one, but I can tell you it was a liquor store. I go to a cannabis store inside a liquor store with a friend. My friend is
Brilliant
standing with
idea.
me. My jaw hits the floor when Buddy says this, because she's asking a million questions about the drinks. Because I was telling her about this cola that I got in Ontario from Legacy 420. So she's in there and she's asking about the drinks, because I was telling her how the drink was like, it tasted just like Coke. It was great, blah, 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 blah. So she was thinking of getting some stuff for her boyfriend. And so she starts asking about this. And he goes, well, this is this, and this is this, and this is cola like you would add to your rum. And my jaw hit the floor. I'm like, are you promoting to use them together as an employee at the liquor store? You're not allowed to do that.
No.
Anyway, okay.
I don't think they've been trained enough to know that they're not supposed to do that.
It's one of the first things. This is one of the things. Apparently, they teach the employees that cannabis is still a drug, and they teach the employees that you have to tell people to not mix it with other drugs, including alcohol. And
alcohol was always more dangerous for me. Like, not even comparable.
But here is the employee in the cannabis store inside the liquor store promoting to mix them. I'm like, oh, yeah. Dude.
And you know what happened? That person.
That I care. It's just that I mean, like
that person would go mix them and then have a problem later on, and they'll be suing the liquor store. And it will happen eventually.
Yep, that's why they're not allowed to promote it. They're not. It is against the rules. It is like you go on suspension offense, right? It's the same as they're not allowed to give medical advice. Like, that's a big no. You'll get sent home for that one. So anyway, I thought it was funny. I think it's hilarious when they trip up, because it's the government's language that's wrong, really. And so anyway, I had to share that story. It was funny, I thought.
It's a story.
In contrast, the total, where were we? Cannabis license holders are required by federal regulation to report any serious adverse reactions. Where were we? I got so excited about that story, I lost it. I'll let you figure it out.
That's the right spot. While the total number of serious cases reported by Health Canada increased by 57% between reporting periods, from 77 cases in 2018 and 2019 to 121 in 2020. Cases where hospitalization was required declined from 43 in the first year to 33 in the second. In the first year, there were 7 reports considered life-threatening, while only 1 was reported as life-threatening in the second year. In contrast, the total number of non-serious adverse reaction reports decreased by 49% from 174 in 2018 and 2019 to 38 in 2020.
However, reports associated with other medical important conditions increased in the second year from 27 to 86. Other medically important condition includes events that are not immediately life-threatening and do not result in death or hospitalization, but may jeopardize the patient or may require intervention. For example, ambulatory services, emergency department visits, outpatient visits, or at-home medical interventions to prevent serious outcome. In both years, cases involving legal cannabis products were more likely to involve female adults, and the majority of the time involved cannabis oils or soft gels. Very few cases were associated with minors, 2 in the first year and 3 in the second.
While the first year's reports did not capture a significant amount of cannabis extract or edibles, most weren't yet on the market. In 2020, there was one suspected case of vaping-associated lung illness that was reported as involving legal cannabis products. The first 2 suspected cases that were reported as involving undefined cannabis, one of these cases were established to be a confirmed or probable case, according to the case definition established by the Public Health Agency of Canada. The majority of reports of adverse reactions in both years involved a single legal cannabis product, although some included mixing of multiple cannabis products. Orally ingested extracts, edibles, and oils were the most common product associated with an adverse reaction, followed by an inhaled cannabis product.
Okay, I'm going to jump a paragraph. Interestingly, most of the cannabis oil products in the adverse reaction cases were considered CBD dominant or CBD leaning, while the dried cannabis products were typically reported as THC dominant. Well, that tells me so much that people really don't know what they're feeling. Oh my God, I'm feeling better. Something must be wrong. That's kind of, you know. Cases involving adults 65 years and older exclusively reported uses of cannabis extracts. Cases involving younger adults were the dried cannabis or dabs. Only those between the ages of 18 to 64, I wasn't supposed to, were involved in adverse reaction cases with vaping liquids, while older adults were more frequently involved in adverse reaction cases with ingestible oils. We just said that like 3 times, we know.
Yep.
I get a kick out of how they've repeated themselves constantly there.
Yeah, they tend to do that in this article. The most commonly reported symptoms of the first year were headache, nausea, hallucination, dizziness, and anxiety. Reports of headache and dyssophia, difficulty breathing, were more frequently associated with THC-dominant products, while reports of dizziness and diarrhea were more frequently reported with CBD-dominant or CBD-leaning products. In the second year, headaches were replaced by hallucinations as the most frequently reported medical events, followed by dizziness, nausea, euphoria, abnormal feelings, and insomnia. Euphoria is on their list. That would be a good thing.
That's what I said. I'm feeling better, so something has to be wrong. And like the 65 plus who are using the CBD, that's exactly what's going on, because they have had 65, 70 years of, their entire adult life, they've had whatever issue going on. They take the CBD, that CBD, the issue starts going away and they freak out. Because they're not like this is not normal, right? So I mean, it's kind of funny at the same time, sad. But I find it kind of comical. It's I'm feeling better, so something must be wrong. Different medical events were also associated with different types of products, cannabinoids, and modes of consumption. In the second year, insomnia and pain were more frequently reported with THC dominant or leaning products, whereas anxiety or diarrhea, I think we just talked about this. Health Canada also notes that more data over the coming years will be needed to draw more solid conclusions. The regulator also highlights that other factors may be contributing to these events, including the age and health status of the patients, including pre-existing health conditions and use of other medications, prior exposure to cannabis, for example, cannabis-naive consumers, dosage, the way that they take it, knowledge or awareness of the effects of cannabis and cannabinoids. Because if you don't know what you're supposed to feel and then you feel it, like I say, it's not normal. Either like I'm feeling better or this feeling of euphoria, and this isn't normal for me, so something must be wrong. I need to go to the hospital. You're taking the medication.
To me, a lot of this is the problem with
dosage, and you just don't know what you're supposed to be feeling. Enough research by that patient or education for that patient hasn't been done. So therefore they think that what they're feeling is wrong when really it's the medicine helping them feel better. And they just don't know. I can be honest. The first time I ate an edible, I was terrified. Is this what I'm supposed to be feeling? Oh my God. And so, yeah, I can imagine that somebody who's 70 years old has never had an edible in their life, has had reefer madness shoved down their throats, and all of a sudden they eat their first edible. Yeah, it's going to scare the crap out of them if they don't have enough education. Terrify them. I watched my mom go through it. I mean, although thank goodness I was with her the first time, right? Because the edible hit her, and she just about collapsed, and she's holding on to everything, and she goes, "Is this how I'm supposed to feel?" And I'm like, "Well, how do you feel?" And she explained it to me, and I'm like, "Absolutely, that's you feeling better and the pain going away." And when I told her that, she was absolutely fine. We went on with the rest of the day and had a great day.
Yep, she's not afraid anymore.
Yep. Okay.
It's long and it keeps saying the same thing.
Yeah, it is. It's long and it keeps saying the same thing. So if you want to go reread the bottom part and basically reread what the top has told you, we will let you. But yeah, that was a very repetitive article, and sometimes that happens. People need to get so many words in, so they keep going until they have words, even if they just have to rearrange, their sentences and say them again. But we're going to head over to Mugglehead Magazine and get some new words. And we are talking about housing nonprofit opens for New York's first recreational cannabis shop.
And a housing nonprofit called the Housing Works would be the first organization to operate a recreational cannabis store in New York State. This Wednesday, Housing Works announced that the store will be located in Manhattan and is having a soft opening on Thursday. The shop is located at 750 Broadway in the Astor Place neighborhood, which is operated by the nonprofit.
Nice. So they're open now. Congratulations. Yay. All the revenue generated from sales will go to the nonprofit, which was founded in 1990 to address HIV/AIDS and help those going through homelessness. Oh my God. I literally, every hair on my body just stood up. This is beautiful what they're doing. They said our nonprofit's mission remains as urgent as ever. We are eager to take the lead as a social equity model for America's cannabis industry, specifically with our hiring practices and continued support of individuals and communities disproportionately impacted by the unjust war on drugs.
Housing Works also operates thrift stores, a bookstore, and now the first cannabis shop in the state. At our core, we're a healing community dedicated to providing housing, healthcare, and vocational programs for New Yorkers, said Charles King, who's the CEO of Housing Works.
This opportunity will not only give our team the resources to further our overall mission, but to feature and elevate products coming from the LGBTQ+ and the BIPOC and women-led cannabis brands across the state. The store is 44,000 square feet and is located in the renowned building Astor Place, which was completed in 1883.
With its history of supporting New Yorkers, particularly formerly incarcerated individuals, we're proud that Housing Works is seizing the opportunity to grow its resources and deliver more for New Yorkers, said Chris Alexander, who's the executive director of the Office of Cannabis Management. When this store opens, consumers will have the opportunity to purchase tested, safer products grown by family farmers across New York State, reducing risk while supporting their communities.
Housing Works Cannabis Company is a recipient of New York State Social Equity License Initiative and was founded in 2022. A bold new extension of Housing Works established retail outlets. And it tells you a little bit more about Housing Works there. Really awesome. I think it's really great that these folks are doing this and, able to give back to the community and hire people and make a difference and take their profits and make differences for people. I'm super excited. Super excited. It's amazing.
I wish they would do this in more states and in the provinces here. I think it's a great thing.
Yeah. Heading over to MJ Biz Daily, cannabis baking reform dead in Congress as industry stakeholders seethe. Okay. In a nutshell, we're going to read this, but in a nutshell, it failed, again. End of story.
Yeah. The nation's biggest cannabis industry voices begrudgingly acknowledged on Monday that Capitol Hill insiders believed for weeks was inevitable. Joe Biden's first 2 years in office will end without federal cannabis banking reform. The industry reached the conclusion after learning a must-pass omnibus spending package would not include the Safe Banking Act, the bipartisan-supported measure banning federal regulators from punishing financial institutions that provide accounts for state legal cannabis firms.
A well-placed source and stakeholders confirmed to MJ's Biz Daily late on Monday the omission of the SAFE legislation, which passed the House of Representatives 7 times, most recently in July. The development was first reported by Marijuana Moment.
Capitol Hill lobbyists and cannabis industry boosters insisted the passage of SAFE was imminent, but without guaranteed support from at least 60 senators, the threshold to overcome Senate rules. The measure never went through the typical committee hearing process in the Senate. Also, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer didn't call safe banking to a vote.
Our small businesses, law enforcement, and community deserves better, said Montana Senator Steve Daines, one of the bill's 8 Republican co-sponsors. The Safe Banking Act would have been well positioned to pass the Senate if both parties could have marked down the bill in committee, Daines said in a statement.
Even though Democratic Senator Cory Booker threatened in the summer of 2021 to withdraw his support of business-first measures, such as a safe banking that didn't have social justice components, no compromise language, such as packaging banking reform with criminal record expungements, or even clarified gun possession rights for medical cannabis patients, ever appeared in the Senate. Great.
Earlier this month, Schumer and other top Senate Democrats believed that they had hatched a deal to include such a so-called Safe Plus package in the National Defense Authorization Act, the annual defense spending bill. But that deal unraveled after a Republican revolt led by Senator Chuck Grassley and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell.
Grassley's office released a memo in which the Justice Department reported enforcement concerns if safe banking passed. And McConnell said that his caucus was opposed to tucking the measure into an unrelated bill.
The Senate could still technically perform some unprecedented, unexpected, and unclear last-minute acrobatics to get SAFE passed in this lame duck Congress. But with time running out and no deal in place, the cannabis industry admitted defeat Monday. So again, this goes on for a little bit, but again, it failed. I mean, after 7 times of it passing in Congress, it failed in Senate. And Joe Biden's, one of the things that we all thought that he was actually going to get done, didn't get done. And that really sucks. Yeah.
It looks like it's not going to get done now. Yeah.
Yeah. It affects the whole world.
The new Congress is sworn in, and it's mainly Republican. So they're a little against this.
Yeah. And with that, it is time for another medication break. Glenn and I will be right back after our medication session. You're watching the not what I was about to say. You're watching the Pace News Reporters. And we are live here on the Pace Radio Network YouTube channels and our Facebook pages.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more. We've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Pace Radio is the people advocating cannabis education radio network.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
Legacy 420 have an awesome array of cannabis-infused beverages, from pop to Nature's Nectar's teas, all in amazing flavors. What a selection! We even have a delicious mango-infused juice, and let me tell you, it's delicious.
Everything is infused in-house, so we buy our syrup from, the same place where everybody else buys their syrup for their pop, and the infusion is done in the lab. It's all canned here, labeled here, produced 100% on Tyendinaga.
We have 2 lines of drinks. One is called our Nature's Nectar. That was our original line that we came out with. And then we also have a line under the Red E brand. We have them in 10 milligrams, 30 milligram, and 60 milligram cans.
What a great selection for a get-together with friends or after a long day. Remember, if you want to wet your whistle with on-site lab-tested products, come see your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network, here at paceradio.net.
Okay, we are back again. Glenn, we've got another medication session completed, and I think we're going to get this day completed. Best to get right back at it. Not just this day, but this is the final show of 2022 for Pace Radio. And we're it. So the next story that we've got coming to you, let me add it to the stream, is coming to from my favorite publication, The Fresh Toast. What happens if you're caught flying with weed in the United States of America?
Any illegal substance is discovered during security screening, TSA will refer the matter to law enforcement officer. The holiday season is approaching, and nearly 113 million Americans are expected to travel at least 50 miles from home, according to AAA. And with cannabis tourism becoming mainstream, an essential packing list of items for a trip these days often includes one's cannabis stash.
But since cannabis is federally illegal, Travel Security Administration, the TSA, stance remains clear. Cannabis and certain cannabis-infused products, including some CBD oil, remain illegal under federal law, except for products that contain no more than 0.3% THC on dry weight basis, or that are approved by the FDA, according to the TSA's website.
However, flying with small amounts of cannabis is happening daily because TSA officers are not explicitly looking for cannabis. TSA screening procedures are focused on security and are designed to detect potential threats to aviation and passengers, TSA says.
If any illegal substances is discovered during security screening, TSA will refer the matter to law enforcement officer. The agency continues. Airport law enforcement will be notified if cannabis is discovered by a TSA officer during security screening process of carry-on and checked baggage. TSA spokesperson Lori Dankers, what a name, wrote in an email to Safegate. Law enforcement officers, says Dankers, will determine, love her name, I'm sorry, whether to initiate a criminal investigation or what steps, if any, will be taken. I hope her co-workers get the pun in her name too.
I bet you most of them don't get it. But in most cases, airport security won't report those carrying small amounts of cannabis. Neil Hallinan, a San Francisco-based criminal defense attorney, told SF Gate that such arrest would be a waste of law enforcement resources. No kidding.
Yeah, it is illegal to carry it through security. Is it illegal to carry it through security? The short answer is yes. On the federal level, it is, he said. But it is the kind of thing that the federal government wants to expend resources to enforce? No. So be careful, but just be careful. Like, I mean, especially if you're traveling to a legal state, just wait till you get there and buy some. But it sounds like the TSA isn't overly excited to go after people on small amounts.
They said they're a security service, but I don't know what that has to do with security.
Exactly. Yeah. Heading over to psychology today, we are learning that it's not just the psychedelics. Therapy matters to go along with it.
Last month, a majority of Coloradans voted to pass Proposition 122, a measure to legalize the use of the psychedelic drugs psilocybin and psilocin. This makes Colorado the second state after Oregon to make psychedelic use legal for therapeutic needs. Because I have spent the last 6 decades of my life trying to increase the acceptance of the potential psychedelic drugs, I know that when competently used, psychedelics support the healing of many forms of human suffering, often considered mental illnesses. Copious research points to the great promise of these therapies, and we're seeing an unprecedented urgency to bring them to the masses.
It's encouraging that Proposition 122 calls for the use of psychedelics under the supervision of licensed professionals and greater education. But follow through on these provisions and others like them is everything. Indeed, the delivery of these therapies is far more important than the molecules that so many companies are now rushing to develop. In 1977, I was the last person in the US involved in clinical trial using psychedelics to accelerate psychotherapy, a research trajectory the federal government shut down as part of the war on drugs. Thankfully, in 1999, Johns Hopkins University gave the psychologist Roland Griffiths and me a green light to resume investigations into the medical promise of psilocybin, the psychedelic compound found in many mushroom species. Today, there are 128 clinical trials in the U.S. evaluating the healing powers of psilocybin alone.
Alongside the boost in clinical research, there has been a proliferation of books, articles, and documentaries raising awareness and strongly presenting, in most cases responsibly, the potential benefits of psychedelics. Not surprisingly, private investors are already placing bets on the future of psychedelics, hope to build a new market in many cities and states. I am concerned, however, that too many initiatives are focused on legalizing psychedelics without considering how they may best be delivered to ensure safety and maximize efficiency.
Psychedelics are most useful and safest when administered in a setting intentionally created to imbue trust with therapists who have the training and experience to prepare and support patients during the period of drug action. Therapists must establish interpersonal grounding, a trusting relationship that enables patients to feel safe, open, and courageous in the opportunities to explore the human mind open. As I explained, in sacred knowledge, psychedelics and religious experiences, one's experience with the psychedelic is a bit like downhill skiing. Almost anyone can go to the top of a mountain, latch on a pair of skis, and make their way downhill alone. It might even be exhilarating. However, if the slopes are not well maintained, we are less likely to trust the environment enough to let go and allow our skills to take us into the experience. The downhill journey could prove to be dangerous if one hasn't learned how to balance, control speed, and safe stop. And that is the same in psychedelics.
It is possible that without guidance, someone might have a good psychedelic experience, but that's risky. They may see great colors or recall long submerged feelings and memories, but without a steady, knowledgeable guide, they may not tap into the profoundly healing and revelatory processes that psychedelics can provide. If they encounter disturbing occurrences along the way, as many do, they might struggle to navigate them. No one can be more pleased than I am about the growing acceptance of psychedelics to help those who may benefit from them. But we must move carefully and deliberately as we expand their availability. That means ensuring that they are taken under the supervision of well-trained therapists and in a safe, well-monitored setting. It also means providing people with the information they need to obtain the safest and most successful outcomes if they choose to take a psychedelic.
Absolutely. Support. Therapy. It's all extremely important.
Now, do you think that they are equal, the therapists themselves and the mushrooms at the same time? Or
we don't have enough time for me to get into that. We have 16 minutes left and 2 stories. So if you want me to answer that question, we got to drop the last 2 stories. Because that's a big question. Okay. That's a huge question. Short answer, yes, they're both equal. They're both equally as important. Long answer, I don't have enough time to give my long answer on that one. But they are so close to importance that short answer will go with yes. Heading over to open access government, brain health conditions, excellence in psychedelic treatments.
Psychedelic treatments can open up an unparalleled window of opportunity, but we need to get ready for their rollout. Mental health care is in crisis, and we don't have the tools to truly help millions of Europeans in need. In the EU, a shocking number of over 100 million people are affected by mental health conditions and alcohol use disorder, and 56,000 die by suicide every year. And yet, few novel treatments have been developed by the pharmaceutical industry in the last several decades. We urgently need more innovation, and psychedelic-assisted therapies are emerging as a potent new class of novel treatments for mental, neurological, and substance use disorders, as indicated by the rapidly growing, rigorous, and compelling body of research. In conjunction with proper psychosocial support, they hold the potential to provide safe, rapid-acting, and robust clinical improvements with durable effects.
Unlike current treatments, that mostly address symptoms, psychedelic treatments and therapies help to confront the root causes of mental health problems or addictions. In doing so, they demonstrate a unique ability to restore a sense of purpose and connection. This, coupled with increased neuroplasticity, provides a deep foundation to embark on a healing process. A crucial aspect of PAT is that improvements are often seen across the board. For example, someone treated for PTSD may also drink less, have healthier relationships with food, and feel less depressed. The U.S. administration expects that psychedelic treatment and therapies will be approved by the FDA in 2024-2025. Soon after, the European Union may follow, and millions of Europeans may be eligible to undergo PAT. This is an unparalleled opportunity, which also calls for bold but thoughtful measures. We need to develop the infrastructure for the highest quality, safe, affordable, and equitable access to PATs, so they can benefit the greatest number of people. This will include establishing good standards of practice, training, and specialized therapists, credentialing and licensing, safe and ethical use monitoring, evidence-based protocols to support people with challenging experience, engagement of communities and peer support networks, and development. So, I mean, everything that you got to do, you've got to inform, you've got to have community meetings, they've got to do the research. Then, yeah, it's going to take a couple of years.
Importantly, regulators are not equipped to evaluate the combination of drug therapy. Traditionally, they've been assessing the safety and efficacy of medications alone. Therefore, a close collaboration with the regulatory agencies is needed to overcome this challenge. To address these opportunities and challenges proactively and in a timely manner, the Biden administration is establishing an interagency federal task force. We urgently need to formulate a similar initiative in Europe to address numerous policy and regulatory considerations related to the future rollout of psychedelic treatments. This could take the form of an EU-led joint action, EU for Health project, EMA pilot, PAT subgroup within the Commission expert group, and Public Health PAT EU expert forum, a horizon scanning activity as part of the Oslo Medicine Initiative, in which part of the HDA regulations and its work to identify emerging health technologies include the EU institutions and WHO Europe are perfectly placed to develop and lead such efforts, and the chances of succeeding will depend heavily on the proactive measures from the EU institutions and the member states to advance the potential EMA approval of PATs.
Well, this goes on for a little bit longer. I'm gonna suggest that you go and read it. This is really interesting. That last couple of paragraphs really caught my attention. The fact that they're joining forces together, and they're doing all that. I only cut it short because our last story is really kind of cute. We were both very excited about getting into this story, and I wanted to give it a little bit of extra time, just because this is our last show before Christmas. Glenn and I are the ones that get to send you off with the big smile and the Merry Christmas. I'm really excited for that. And I did happen to find a psychedelic story, which I thought was kind of neat. I found it over on MSN, and the story is, because we've all heard this, is Santa really a psychedelic mushroom?
It adorns the pages of children's books like Alice in Wonderland, appears in Super Mario and the Smurfs, and numerous ornaments across the world. It seems the lurid red and white spotted psychedelic mushroom, fly agaric, is how do you pronounce it? Agaric, also known as Amanita muscaria, is the iconic fungus in popular culture. After all, there is no other mushroom emoji. What remains unclear for some is whether Father Christmas is a jolly personification of the widely misunderstood dream-inducing toadstool, or a nod to shamanic origins of the most important holiday in the Christian calendar, or both, or neither. The overwhelmingly most likely option.
Santa Claus has a composite identity, or morphology, that is, that he was constructed according to writer and mycologist Lawrence Millman, a part of which is perhaps an amanita-eating shaman from Lapland. The Sami people of modern Finland, who live within communities where the shamans are revered, still consume the Ingestible mushroom, occasionally through drinking of the urine of reindeer who have had almost They love them. They love these things for the fungus, which induces the feeling that one is flying. Like, oh my God, drinking the urine of reindeer. I'm sorry, I was stuck on that for a second. I apologize.
It is. It's a funny way. It's a funny way to consume mushrooms. Sami reindeer herders collect the mushroom and create trails with it to make their reindeer go where they want them to go, kind of like the carrot, you know. Adds Millman. If people feel like they are flying after eating Amanita, perhaps reindeer have a similar experience. It brings delirious, hypnotic, disassociated, dreamlike states that can degenerate into pure sedation, depending on the dose. It will almost certainly bring on intense physical side effects if eaten raw.
Use of the mushroom, possibly the most recognizable of all, far precedes the idea of Christmas and the all-powerful man who, rather like a shaman, zips across the world in a single night delivering gifts to one and all. In one of his essays, Millman speculates that the figure of the shaman entering the snow-covered yurt through the chimney filtered down to temperate Europe over the ages. And the story that I heard was in Finland, they would go collecting. They would travel from house to house, and to avoid wildlife eating them, they would dress themselves to look like these mushrooms because this wildlife was scared of the mushroom because it would kill them.
Yeah.
And so you would see the people traveling around dressed as the mushroom, aka Santa Claus, delivering their wares.
Wow, that's different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Amanita, which contains the psychoactive. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Psychoactive mucimol and ibotenic acid probably entered the consciousness of so-called civilized people via its charismatic color. However, it was not consumed altogether so regularly. With other methods such as drumming, often used to achieve holotropic states of consciousness. It does seem like a fantasy, but there's totally a connection, says artist Matthew Stulton, who authored a viral New York Times article and accompanying illustrated video clip titled "Santa is a Psychedelic Mushroom" in 2017. Writer Michael Pollan and Joe Rogan shared the piece as it swiftly made a big impact. Between flying reindeer and an all-knowing man in red, is it a surprise that Christmas has hallucinogenic roots? The New York Times tweeted.
I love it. Once upon a time, pardon me, Santa was related in lineage to a psychedelic mushroom eating shaman from Lapland. Sure, Sultan writes. Maybe there's more to Santa than we had previously acknowledged, like his shamanic forefathers. Perhaps he's given us a gift, like Santa does, one of knowledge and reflection, and one we certainly can't buy. But he acknowledges the difficulty of identifying a single route to any cultural curiosity or folkloric tradition. The nature of who we are and where we come from is complex, he adds. Sultan first became aware of the more than tentacle link after reading a Harvard biology professor, Donald Feister, who delivered Yuletide lectures on the anomaly. Reindeers flying. Are they flying, or are your senses telling you that they're flying because you're hallucinating? He told NPR. So here's a red fungus with white spots, and Santa Claus was dressed in what? red and white trim.
Just another example of how the debate has arrived in the mainstream after other theories fell by the wayside. Like this one should. Before 1931, there were many different depictions of Santa Claus around the world, including a tall, gaunt man and an elf. There was even a scary Claus. The Coca-Cola company says, denying its reports it invented Father Christmas. But in 1931, Coca-Cola commissioned illustrator Hayden Sandblom to paint Santa for Christmas advertisements. Those paintings established Santa as a warm, happy character with human features, including rosy cheeks, a white beard, twinkling eyes, and laughter lines. Most experts dismiss the possibility of a festive connection to the enigmatic Ethiogen, which they maintain is a myth. Writer and architect Clement Moore conjured the modern conception of Santa Claus in a poem, "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," written in New York in 1822, which inspired the Coke ads. In it, he transformed medieval St. Nicholas into an airborne spirit at the wheel of a group of reindeer soaring above the northern U.S. during the middle of winter.
There's no link at all between Santa and flying agaric, says Andy Letcher, author of Shroom, A Culture History of the Magic Mushroom. He writes in the book that that it is certain Moore was drawing not upon any shamanistic folk memory, but upon his particular talent for creative writing. The idea that Santa was a fly agaric shaman was first suggested by the poet Robert Graves in the early 1970s. Not a man known for his historical accuracy or the need for evidence, he adds. The idea has been conclusively disproved. However, the fact that the myth persists in spite of the evidence suggests that it meets a contemporary need. Santa was emphatically not a fly agaric shaman, but he is now, and that to me is rather interesting.
And Amanita, which grows throughout the northern hemisphere, continues to be a gift that keeps giving. People are increasingly realizing that since it does not contain psilocybin or psilocin, the most common psychoactive properties of magic mushrooms that were globally prohibited amid the war on drugs, it can be legally sold across the world. Wow. It can help with sleep, anxiety, depression, body pain, and more, says a recent press release for a new brand marketing the medicine. The carefully extracted tincture harnesses Amanita muscara's restorative powers to soothe the body and tackle physical distress.
Wow. Okay, I really hate to cut this particular story short, but we are running out of time. But we just learned something there, which you love to do with every show. So there it is. And I feel that that's a great place to stop. Please do go read that article. It's really cool. It really caught my attention and Glenn's attention. So I was really excited to share that with you. It's also kind of a Christmas story. It's a great way to end the broadcast. And, you know, we can now take 5 seconds here and wish you a very, very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year from myself and Glenn and everybody here at Pace Radio and CBG TV. We wish you the absolute best. And with that, that is our final Pace News Report of 2022. It is December 22nd, and we are here at the Legacy420.com news desk. And in closing, Glenn and I would like to say thank you for watching our Cannabis News broadcast over 2022, and we very much look forward to seeing you in 2023. Have a great rest of your year and a wonderful new year.
Merry Christmas.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partners 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.